and welcome to the Canvas in Kind painting subscription. I'm so excited that you've decided to join me. So today, for the very first tutorial, I'm actually going to talk a little bit about roses and how I paint a grouping of roses in this very wild style. So because I know 11 by 14 can be slightly intimidating to some of you guys as beginners, or if you're just wanting to know how I do my wild flowers, how I do these different things, it might be easier for us to start out on a smaller surface. So I have a little 8 by 10 canvas here that we're going to be playing with here. And then I have my brushes. I have a variety of kinds of brushes. I have some flat brushes. I just got this one the other day. So a flat brush is exactly how it sounds. It's just a flat shape, and they're on this side. And then I also use filbert brushes, or scalloped. I use those, the petal shapes. I feel like they make a really nice petal shape. And then I also use some angled brushes as well. I usually use detail brushes on some of my paintings. On this one, it was a little bit more wild, but I use a flat shader on for the details. But really today, I think we're probably going to be sticking to flat brushes, some filbert brushes, and just some angles, so angled and flat, and then the filbert brushes. So that's what I have with me today. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the paints that I'm using. So underneath this is kind of a bright blue turquoisey color, and so we are going to fill in with a little bit of that. And so to get started, I'm going to go ahead and take my Brilliant Blue, which I have over here on this paint palette, and just going to paint my surface here to get started. And then while we're waiting for this to dry, I'll talk a little bit about some of my other paint colors. Again, this is just Liquitex Basics, and it's kind of a watered down Brilliant Blue. I do like to use a lot of water when I'm doing this base layer because I think it creates a lot of variety instead of just using the same color and painting it, you know, just straight up. I like using water to give it a nice bit of variety, and you can really still see the texture of the canvas. You don't have to use, you don't really have to use the 1.5 inch. You don't really have to use that canvas. You can just buy the one of the 7/8 inches. Totally fine. But I'm just gonna paint this whole thing with just a watered down Brilliant Blue. And so today, because we're gonna be painting roses, which I think is just the the paramount floral that so many people paint, I'm gonna teach you guys how I do it in a more abstract way, and hope you guys will really enjoy this process. So whenever I first started painting florals, I just looked at a lot of pictures of flowers and tried to replicate exactly what I saw. But what I love so much about my painting style is that you don't have to replicate the image exactly. You can really just play with shapes that show enough, here we go, and you just show enough of a hint of a flower, and that's really what creates that wild look, is to not push it too far. So I have this right here, and we're gonna let this dry, and then I'm gonna share with you some of the paint colors that I really love and that we're gonna be using today. So I'm gonna start off with Nova Color. This is a newer to me brand. I've only really been using it for a little over a month, but I love it. I love, love, love it. And it's actually fairly inexpensive. So this one is the one that I'll talk about first. It's called Peach Tone. It's opaque, and so Nova Color is not like a heavier body. It's in between like a fluid acrylic and a heavy body. And so we're going to be using this for sure, Peach Tone. And then also from Nova Color, the Fluorescent Magenta, which you'll see mixed in throughout here, some of this kind of purpley color, and it's very, very highly saturated. It is really, it has this very bright, vivid feel to it, but also when you use it with white, it tones it down quite a bit and just makes the loveliest pinky purple. So I really love this color, Fluorescent Magenta. Also, I'll be using a bit of Fluorescent Pink. Their Fluorescent Pink is very liquidy and very smooth. It's beautiful and stunning. And you can kind of see little hints of it throughout here. And then I've mixed it with some white to create some of that really pretty pink tones. Continuing on with the pinks, I do use this because of the body, and it's very similar to Peach Tone, but it's got just a bit more pink in it. And this is just Liquitex Basics Light Pink. For reds, I use the Parole Red, and then I also used my Golden Cad Red Light, Cadmium Red Light. And this, when it comes out of the tube, it really appears as like a deep orange, but I love mixing in some of these oranges with the reds, and you'll see why as we continue on with that. But those are really my warm colors. And then transitioning from warm to cooler colors, this obviously is a little bit more warm, but I use Cad Free Yellow Medium, and I use that in so many different areas. I use it actually in some of the leaves, and then I use it in some of the florals to give depth, some in here to just create different varieties of roses. So I love using this, and this is a heavier body, so when you mix it with these, it actually has a really nice texture. So I use that. And then going into the greens that I use, I like this light olive green. It's almost a knockoff of the green gold, so if you can't quite afford the green gold just yet, this light olive green is like green gold but mixed in with a little white. But it created a lot of these areas, which I used. I used this quite a bit, and then I also added in some green gold. And then, like I said before, this is Brilliant Blue, just spread all over the canvas. And if you use it with quite a bit of water, get some of those dots there. There we go. Use it with quite a bit of water so that you have some of these variations in tones. You'll see darker spots through here, lighter spots in here, and it just really makes nice variety when you use that. I also like to use just a little bit of turquoise blue, and this is kind of it's a more green color. I use this just a bit in this. And then again, phthalo blue. I love mixing my phthalo blue to get these deep, dark areas, and even just a hint of phthalo blue with some of my reds to create some of the deeper shadings through here and some of the red roses. And of course, obviously, last but not least, is I use titanium white. And sometimes I kind of vary. I go back and forth between the brands that I use. I use this a lot because this is what you can find at Michael's. But sometimes they have really good sales on the Master's Touch at Hobby Lobby. And so I will use this sometimes on some of my bigger canvases. It does take a little longer to dry, I've noticed, than this, and it has a little stickier feel, I find, than the Liquitex Basics acrylics. But those are really the colors I use quite a bit. I think I use just a little tiny bit of this sap green, which is one of my favorite golden colors. They're greens. The greens and the golden colors are some of my very favorites. So those are the colors that we'll be using today. And what I like to have is I like to have these little flower palettes so that I can just move it around in my hand like this. I always fill this center part with white, and then I can mix it from there. And then I put my cool colors on one side and my warm colors on one side, so I can just move it around and I switch that way. So I'll be using this, and we'll let this dry for a few more minutes, and then we'll come back to our painting.